This is so even if such another parallel dimension was created somewhat sooner or later than the one from which the time travelers came. It's just important that the space and time relationships are exactly the same, right? Semjase says, why do you always ask me if you have sufficient knowledge about this? Billy says, I just want to be sure. Well then, time travel into the past or future is always other dimensional than the past or future itself. Now, however, the possibility exists, which I know from Mascot and from you and was also allowed to experience myself, that there are technical possibilities for them to make themselves visible in the past or in the future and to communicate with the life forms there. However, this can only happen if the matter of the time traveler is so far condensed by technical devices or by consciousness forces that the life form becomes visible as a body of energy, but one can still pass through him, however, because he remains, in either way, other dimensional. Have I properly said this? Semjase says, sure. Billy says, so further, the aforementioned relates to time traveling with the aid of purely natural or technical processes that are known to human and other life forms or will one day become known, according to their level of development. Events of the present and future already happen in relation to the time travels, which offer no opportunities to change something in the past. Among these forms, however, there is still to add that a time traveling exists that comes about via pure consciousness-related forces, and by what means it is possible to materialize oneself in the past or in the future, but the matter of the past or of the future must be taken into account in each case. Nevertheless, a life form only becomes strong in this ability if he is accordingly developed in his consciousness evolution and lives out the necessary love. This means that such a life form is no longer capable of committing illogical violence against the laws of nature. Thus, he never even enters into temptation anymore, if he travels to the past or to the future, to commit illogical violence, such as wanting to change the future through additional acts or deeds in the past. On the other hand, his logical understanding is already so highly evolved that he already recognizes and knows that nothing more can be changed in the past that would shape the future differently than what has already happened, because the future, from which the time traveler came, has already happened as an effect of the preceding causes. However, if a time traveler materializes in the past or in the future and shall meet himself there, then this will also occur in the future if he came from there, because the spirit, respectively the spirit form of the time traveler, likewise materializes in the past or in the future, depending on whether the trip was from the future to the past or from the past to the future. This happened, for example, when I traveled with Askat into the past and then also into the future, and it also happened when I did the experiment in Hinwol with letters, which I carried into the past, 2 days before the date of writing, to the post office. Semjase says, that's all correctly explained, only, for the Earth people, everything will be very confusing and incomprehensible. Billy says, I've already often experienced this because for normal thinking people, these things seem to be confusing and crazy. I've also noticed this in each case when I talk about time traveling, which I have done with you. Time and space are still inexplicable to the person of Earth, even though everything can be simply understood. Semjase says, that is understandable because the Earth person still has no great knowledge about space and time. However, on the other hand, you still forgot to mention another important factor in your explanations, which is that time traveling can also be performed in a materialized form in the past or future with technical aids, just as we demonstrated it to you. Billy says, I haven't forgotten that, and on the other hand, I spoke of it when I referred to time traveling with the aid of consciousness forces. Semjase says, sure, but that technical aids, by the power of consciousness, can become highly effective time-traveling missiles? You did not mention. Billy says, no, I thought that I wouldn't be allowed to talk about that so openly. Semjase says, it is also incomprehensible to the Earth person that he can cause no mischief with this knowledge. You could have calmly mentioned these interests and facts. Billy says, previously, however, I wasn't allowed to do this. Semjase says, quite simply because at the time, it would have raised too many problems for the various interested parties, in which they would have hopelessly entangled themselves. Billy says, which has also already happened. Some are nearly crazy. Semjase says, that is known to me, but now, this danger might be avoided. Billy says, as you mean? Semjase says, it is as I say. Billy says, then that's also good. In regards to this, that was actually everything that I had to say about time traveling, except that I now have the problem that we have talked for too long, and I promised to be with my guests again in about 30 minutes. But now, 1.5 hours have passed, and somehow, I should be back again at the right time. Semjase says, you know that this is no problem. Billy says, of course not, with your hell machine of a ship, nearly everything is possible. Semjase says, I'll still come with you for a few minutes to your workroom if you let me. Billy says, logically. Semjase says, then we'll go back in time about 75 minutes. Billy says, that's enough, then I can possibly go back into the kitchen again after about 30 minutes. Semjase says, then now, position yourself here. What is that? Semjase says, you would say that it is a time transmitter. Billy says, there are all kinds of new stuff in this new ship. Can you explain this once to me, a little more closely? Semjase says, not today. Billy says, I also didn't mean that, but I would still have a question now. If you carry me back in time in each case, this is, once more, another kind of time travel. But how this works, I have not yet discovered with all my meditation. It is only clear to me that this time traveling has nothing to do with kinds about which we have spoken just now. Semjase says, I will explain this to you once in detail if everything is in place. But about this kind of time travel, you may give no one information. Now, however, we should go. Billy says, okay. Semjase says, so, here we are. It is nice to be in your workroom once again, and this time, I brought my protective device. Billy says, that was also wise, when I think of the accident at that time. Semjase says, yes, in this, I've done well because someone is outside. Do you hear the quiet noises? Billy says, no, but it seems to be better if you go back before something happens again. Semjase says, I also think so. Farewell, my friend, and think again about everything that we've discussed regarding the work and mission. Until we meet again. Billy says, goodbye, girl, bye, and I will think about it. Greet all from me rather nicely. Semjase says, with pleasure. Thank you. I also pay you my dear greetings. Until we meet again.